if you're in pain, you need to take something. So I took one pill, and I want to tell you something. I got so nauseous and so sick, and I felt like I was going to, I don't know what, everything just was kind of going in circles. And he called me, like, this was about 2 hours after I'd taken it, and he said, "You sound like a zombie." And I said, "Well, I took one of those pills you told me to take, and I'm never taking another one." And I know the reaction that I had, and I thought, no, never again. So, it's always amazing to me how people do get hooked on these things, because I just, it just was not for me. But you have a very interesting section in your book about learning to narrate your story. And as a speaker and as a radio host, I'm always looking at stories and telling stories. Tell us why you think that's important.
I think that, if you really, and you've touched on the importance of social support and connection, family connection or friends, connection with friends, and how important that is. And next to connection, connection with loved ones, I think being able to talk about one's experiences is one of the most healing things. And whether that's within the context of, close friends or family members or peers that you deployed with, or in a traditional mental health setting with a professional, there are various types of narrative processes that can happen that can be beneficial. And a lot of veterans are very, and understandably, very reluctant to talk about their experiences. Oftentimes, the last person that they want to talk about their experiences with is their loved ones, is their closest loved ones, because they don't want to affect the person's perception of them, if they knew what really happened downrange. And so they keep their stories close hold, and that's understandable. I'm not saying, when I talk about narration, I'm not saying that they should go out and start telling their stories. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that in the appropriate circumstances with the right person, and when they feel comfortable to do that, that is a very healing component. And I think it's the studies have also shown that it's really one of the most healing things that happen in a psychotherapy setting, in a professional setting where a person goes to seek mental health. It's really that narrative process of sitting with someone and the other person listening to what happened and providing empathetic feedback, not advice, and reacting neutrally, not overreacting. And it's that ability to sit with one's, experience that then leads to acceptance and integration of that experience. What happens with combat veterans and with people in general who go through trauma is that there's a tendency to wall the trauma off, and try to, essentially avoid touching it, even with a 10-foot pole. You stay away from it, you wall it off, and that is protective. I mean, that allows a person to get, to go through life and do the things they need to do. But ultimately, those things have a tendency to push their way to the surface, and eventually, for many people, they do need to sit down and sort of, deal with those experiences at some point in their life. And it's different for everyone. I'm not saying that one size fits all. Everyone has to find their own, what works for them. For some veterans, it's being involved, for instance, with other veterans, for instance, in a kayaking or a bicycling, club or something where there's other veterans around, and there's sort of organic narrative processes that happen in that. For others, it's going into a professional setting and getting professional help. So it's different for each person.
Well, one of the things that you address, which is a big portion, I would think, of anybody's life when they come back, are the navigation strategies for spouses, partners, family members, and especially helping children cope with the stresses of deployment and transition. What are some of your suggestions for helping kids get through this? Because not only do they have to deal with what happens when the parent leaves, but what happens when they come back. And then there are some situations where there are two parents who are deployed. So what are some of your suggestions there?
Yeah, and studies have shown that that deployments have an impact on families and have an impact on children, and that children may develop their own mental health problems at the time when service members are deployed. But they're also military families are very resilient at the same time, and there are a lot of programs, or oftentimes they have the peer support from other family members that can be very helpful. I think that things that can be helpful, just sort of basic things, is just having an understanding of what to expect, so that when the service member comes home and startles to a loud noise, or looks like he's a little bit more withdrawn or detached than he was before deployment, that the family members don't start viewing that as necessarily abnormal, and sort of treat things in a very matter-of-fact way, and have an understanding of why the person is reacting the way he is. For instance, if he reacts to a loud noise and falls to the ground, and that may seem odd in the middle, for instance, of a shopping mall, or outside here in the U.S., but it's certainly a natural response in the operational environment when a loud noise happens, and the body actually gets conditioned to respond that way. So it's not something the person is choosing to do. It's just something the body is taking over, and it's doing what it's supposed to do to protect that individual. And even though the context is wrong for that response, the response is the right response. And so, if people sort of understood that a little bit more and didn't overreact, that would be, that's just sort of one example of things that family members could do. But, also just getting support from each other, sometimes family members need, their own treatment, and resources are available for that, although admittedly, I think probably the attention on families hasn't been necessarily as to the degree that it has been on the service member, and I think that's a problem. I think there needs to be more attention on what families need in for their own experiences.
Well, your book covers so many areas, especially in the family arena. I mean, you talk about infidelity, the situations that come along with that, all of the resources that might be available within yourself, and strength, independence, all of that. I just can't tell people how important, if you have a loved one who has served, you really need to get this book. Once a Warrior, Always a Warrior, Navigating the Transition from Combat to Home, including combat stress, PTSD, and mTBI. It's just, you've been a wealth of information, Dr. Hoge, and I really encourage people to get your book and to really pay attention to what's said here, because you've got some really very practical advice. That's the most important thing. It's you talk about it in a way that people can understand. It's not medically written so that people would say, I need a dictionary to look up these words. It's very down to earth and very practical. So I recommend everybody get this. If you have a loved one, if you know of someone who has a loved one, is having a tough time with it, go and buy this as a gift for them. I mean, this is a wonderful thing to have. I really appreciate you being with us today, and continue your wonderful work, because we need it and we need you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I also want to put in a plug for the support that I got from my wife, who actually helped write that section on the family that you commented on. So, but thank you very much. I really
Well, you're welcome, and my congratulations and kudos to her as well. And I want to thank everybody for listening, and go out and get this book. You're going to enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much.